Mimi, your new opinion piece published this morning on MSNBC.com is titled, Representative Tim Burchett thinks there's no way to prevent mass shootings. He's just wrong. You write in part, quote, on Monday, 6 more people, 3 of them children who will never see their 9th birthdays, were murdered at the hands of a shooter armed with assault-style weapons. The shooter was able to legally obtain 7 weapons, 3 of which were used in the attack. And according to police, the attack was calculated and planned. Significantly, as in so many other mass shootings, early reporting indicates the attacker exhibited troubling warning signs to family members ahead of the shooting. And according to Nashville Metro Police Department chief, the shooter's parents felt their child should not own weapons. In addition to well-known and discussed solutions like legislation banning assault weapons, closing loopholes on background checks, and instituting waiting periods, we must pass lesser-known strong extreme risk laws, also called red flag laws, at the national and state level, and significantly increase training and awareness of such laws and how they work. Will this prevent all lives lost from gun violence? Of course not, but this approach will help to stem the tide of horrific shootings, loss of life, and the trauma our country is facing from them. So, Mimi, let's talk about red flag laws. There are concerns, constitutional concerns, for many people who say, well, what gets you on a red flag list? You know, is it breaking the law? Is it an accusation against you? Is it a police visit to your home for some kind of incident? So how do you define a red flag law? What's the best way to operate them?
Hi, Willie. So that's a great question. What defines a red flag law, what defines someone as having a risk significant enough to have a firearm temporarily? These are temporary civil orders, not criminal prosecutions, not a permanent ban on weapons. It is based on behavior that someone, usually someone close to the person, sees, like a parent. I mean, how many times have we seen these mass shootings? And it is a parent who comes out afterwards and says, yeah, I was worried. If we don't hear that from a parent, and there was concerning behavior, that's a whole other issue, but we do hear that so much. Or someone in a school or a medical professional who was giving them mental health care, or someone in law enforcement who was called to the person's home to deal with a domestic violence situation. So there are all sorts of literal, warning signs, red flags. What has to happen, the constitutional protection, is it is showing a hearing is held with a judge. Usually it's law enforcement that goes to the judge, and a judge makes a finding, just like they do in dozens and dozens of different types of proceedings every day, like protection orders. I mean, there are all sorts of things that we have built into our system where we go to a judge, we make a showing, a judge makes a finding and says, you know what, temporarily we need to take this constitutional right away temporarily. And I just want to say one other thing, which is that the trauma that is caused to victims, I mean, losing a life, having someone killed, obviously that is first and foremost the worst trauma. But what about the trauma of thinking something could have been done? And that's what we're seeing over and over. We're hearing about these red flags after the fact. And I think that just makes the pain for the families and for the victims so much worse.
You're right, Mimi. It's almost inevitable in the aftermath of these shootings now. We hear from family members who say, yeah, the person was disturbed, or we see social media posts or manifestos that illustrate that point. And just to point out, 19 states and Washington do have some version of a red flag law, which of course leaves 31 states, including the state of Tennessee, with nothing like that. So in this case, even if the shooter's parents had said something to someone, it's not clear that anything would have happened. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, they don't have a red flag law there. There is the SAFE Act. There is federal law that'll prohibit someone from buying a firearm, of certain kinds of firearms, if they have been found or adjudicated to have sort of a mental, quote, defect, right? That's the word of the statute. But that's a very, very high threshold. That actually is not a reason to get a red flag law. So in other words, if you have a red flag law, just going in and saying, well, someone has mental health issues is not enough, right? It's based on actual behavior and conduct, not on finding someone to have mental health issues. We look at the conduct. So that's why these are such powerful laws, because they react urgently to an urgent situation to try and stop something horrible from happening.
Mike Barnicle, we have talked about how much the Republican Party has changed over the past 20, 30 years, about every day here for quite some time. And we talked about George W. Bush yesterday, talking about PEPFAR, I think it was yesterday, and the 25 million lives saved in Africa. Talking about George W. Bush again today, here's a guy who's a Texas governor and was seen as obviously very conservative in many aspects of his presidency. But this was George W. Bush on gun safety laws 23 years ago. In the 2000 campaign, he supported background checks. He supported trigger locks. He supported raising the age of buying a shotgun to 21. He supported an extension of the assault weapons ban. That was a mainstream Republican candidate who got elected president 2 times.
Joe, you can take George W. Bush and multiply him by 10,000 public people. And the fact is, the truth is, at the end of the day, we are failures. As a country, as a culture, as a society, we have failed. We fail our children, we fail our families, we've just failed everything because of the ocean of guns that are available each and every day on the street. Listening to Mimi, who is in Westchester County, they have strong gun laws in New York. The most frightening call a police officer and his partner get is a domestic disturbance, because you never know when you knock on the door, red flag law or not, whether there's an AK-47 inside or a .38 pistol or a 9mm, you just don't know because of the availability of guns. And Eddie, I'm wondering you, with your blessed viewpoint, your ability to articulate the difficulties that we face as a culture, what do we need? Do we need the voice of God coming down and speaking to us? Do we need an eternal voice from upstairs, from somewhere, from heaven, from someplace to say, get a grip on yourselves, America? You're losing your children. You're losing your culture. You've already lost your minds.
You know, Mike, I wish I understood. I wish I knew. I do know that we have to decide what kind of world we want to live in. And it just seems to me that in so many ways, I'm not just talking about that fringe right that is so committed to the weapons of war on streets, to the AR-15. I'm talking about those of us who desire a society where our kids aren't in danger. And it seems to me that if it's an 85% issue, it's a 96% issue but we're not fighting for the world we want. We are allowing ourselves to be pushed into living in a world where the radical fringe seems to control how we do this.
By the way, can I just, sure, if you don't mind?
Sure, Doc.
They don't seem to control. The radical fringe doesn't seem to control.
They control.
You know, we always love to say, oh, we've got this problem in America, American culture, Americans this. Why don't we just call it what it is? It's the radical fringe. Mm-hmm. It's the 10%. We'd have universal background check if 90% of Americans had their way. There would be a ban on military-style weapons if 2/3 of Americans had their way, according to a lot of polls through the years. Yeah. It's the radical fringe. And I just, you look at voting rights, you look at guns, abortion. You look at abortion, you look at all of these things. And I must say, I've always been a strong believer in the filibuster. I've always loved the idea that the House is hot, the Senate cools things down. No more. It doesn't work. When 6% of Americans can allow the continued proliferation of guns without background checks and the killing of children, it's time to get rid of the filibuster. When voting rights can be threatened, and again, overwhelming majorities want voting rights protected. But the radical minority can hide behind the filibuster and do it. Enough is enough.
So help me understand why the majority isn't fighting like hell. Well, are the terms rigged? Why aren't we engaged in a general strike?
I don't understand.
The world we want? Why aren't we having walkouts, Joe? I mean, why aren't we fighting against this radical fringe?
The thing is, if I can't win a fight and I'm on the right side of the fight, I call out the people that are on the wrong side of the fight and I make them walk through shame every day. If kids are getting killed in schools the way they're getting killed in schools, and there's a Democratic senator that's quietly opposing, background checks, or quietly opposing some of these other things, or quietly opposing change in the filibuster rules, you know what? You have to confront them with it every day. I'm not saying I'm not saying yelling or anything like that. But attach your legislation to every single bill. Have an amendment. Make them vote against protecting children every single time they vote on a bill.
I think there's another way to see this. Look, I mean, obviously we're all frustrated because on the macro level, we have this incredible tyranny of the minority on all the issues that you've just described. And that feels so un-American, right? It's so frustrating, the sense that in a democracy, which is built on the representation of the people, that the people's voice is being so overlooked. On the other hand, I do think there is some strength here to build from. And as people have contacted me, especially lots of moms who've contacted me in the last few days and said, I'm so frustrated, what do I do? There are some windows into possibility, and you got to look at what Everytown for Gun Safety and what Moms Demand have done. They are two of the most effective citizen advocacy organizations in this country.